and we're going to talk to Lawrence Butterfield, who's an experienced mental health nurse and is a men's mental health campaigner. Lawrence, you're very welcome to Talk TV. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good, thank you, Peter. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Tell us how big a problem male suicide is.
It is a big problem. Male suicide, males are 3 times higher the rate of suicide with males compared to females. So that will sort of put it into some sort of context.
And I suppose the next question is, what's the reaction, or what's the reason for that? Really, what are the reasons that have made that the case?
I think there's quite a few different reasons, Peter, but I think one of the main reasons is the old adage, big boys don't cry, which is a very damaging adage. It's something we've got to try and get rid of. It's amazing. 20 years ago, I started on my own sort of personal crusade campaign against stigma of mental health. And I didn't think 20 years ago that I would be sat here now, 20 years later, still talking about male suicide, because it was an issue then and it's an issue now. And the statistics, they don't seem to come down. You know, this doesn't seem, a lot of awareness is out there, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be getting across to men. But I think
what can we do to support men? What can we do if someone's struggling with suicide? There are helplines that are available at talk.tv/helplines. We can refer people to those, but that's when things are at a crisis level, really, Lawrence, isn't it? What can we do in our daily lives to try to support people, do you think?
Well, I think in our daily lives, we can all acknowledge that mental health is as important as our physical health. So there's no shame. There shouldn't be a stigma attached to our mental health. We should all realise that our mental health works in correlation with our physical health. Therefore, you know, nobody's different because they're feeling stressed out. Because a man is feeling stressed out, he shouldn't feel that he somehow should be stigmatised. It's a sign of weakness, because it isn't. We've got to say to men that there's no harm in sharing your feelings. There's no harm in opening up and talking about your emotions. In fact, if anything, if we can get that culture out there that it's a sign of strength rather than a sign of weakness, to actually open up and talk about your problems. And I think if more men talk to men, as much as talk to women, of course, then it will sort of normalise mental health. So it'll make it par for the course, that it's a natural thing for men to talk about mental health as much as it is for women, and not actually see it as somehow as a sign of a weakness. That's what we have to try and get rid of, this stigma, the shame around men, you know, not opening up. The big boys don't cry sort of attitude has to be obliterated, basically.
Yes. Okay. Well, listen, I just want to ask you one final question, Lawrence. If there are people listening who are having trouble, who are thinking, do you know what, I'm not okay, things are difficult. I mean, there are lots of problems in our health system. I'm very lucky. I have depression and anxiety. I've never acted on anything. I've had suicidal thoughts, certainly. I don't anymore, I don't anymore, which is great. Yeah, Lawrence, it's a tough thing. But what would you say to people seeking that help, who are sometimes it's very difficult in the health system to actually get the help they need? It's the first step, but it's an important step. 4 words I tend to use, or I tend to think, if I'm feeling quite down, and like yourself, Peter, I've been in some very dark places in my life. The 4 words I always think are, this too will pass. Yeah. Yeah. And basically, tomorrow is another day. It can be a completely different day to today. If we harm ourselves, if we take our lives, we rule out any possibility of things getting better tomorrow. So I think if people could just hold that thought, this too will pass, and then whenever they're feeling down, to think about those lines and to reach out for help. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out for help. There are many, many men who are doing it at the moment, probably now as we speak, are asking for help. So don't have any shame in doing that.